Hi, it's Mike Stephenson here. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Turbo 360, and I'm going to show how I use the tool to help me do a cost review for the teams internally in Covi. So here we're in the Turbo 360 portal. I'm going to look at Document 360, and I'm just going to do a quick run through of the things I'm looking for. So if you imagine in Covi, the Document 360 team, like all the other teams, we empower them to manage their own costs. They're the engineering team and the operations team that run the application. They're the best people to review the costs. I'm going to provide a governance layer playing a FinOps role over the top of that team. And I'm going to look, once a month we'll do a cost review. We'll look at the things that we see. I'll ask them questions about the kind of the ongoing activities they're doing when they do their internal cost reviews and just provide sort of like a governance and sanity check. So the things that I'm looking at here with the tool. So first off, if you imagine over here on the tree, we're green at the minute, so that means our monitoring's healthy with it. We're within budget. I'm over in the analysis area, and I've got a graph which is looking at the accumulated costs. And what I can see here, we've got a fairly flat trend of growth. So that tells me, things probably are going okay at a sort of macro level. If we're seeing growth going in this direction, then I would be wanting to take a closer look at a lot of things and look for where our costs are kind of spiraling. If things are going in this direction, it probably means we've implemented some cost savings, which would be a good thing. So at this top level, things look quite healthy. What we've got to remember, though, with a lot of our applications that we build on the cloud, just because costs are increasing doesn't necessarily mean that we have a problem. It might just be that the application's being used more and the consumption of the application growing might mean that the costs would grow proportionately. So what we're really looking for is a kind of a parallel between the growth in usage and the growth in the cloud costs being fairly lined up together. Now, a couple of things that I usually look for. The next one would be this graph of comparing last month against this month. So obviously we're part way through the month. So I'm looking at this month's costs here, last month to date. And, what I'm seeing here when I look at this is generally, everything combines below that sort of 370 odd mark here. In this graph, you can see I've got it grouped by service names. This is looking at the team across all of their environments, dev, test, prod, etc. I can get a good flavour of where we're spending our money. So, things like other categories would usually be things like reservations factored in potentially. App service is one of the key components. That's going to be a large portion of the costs here. Now, what I can see if I compare the 2 months, so we've got 764 and 728. So we're a bit ahead of last month, but the big difference when I look at this month versus last month, generally our costs are down quite a bit, but obviously we've got this big spike here. So the first question would be, well, what was that spike? Because that, if it wasn't for the spike and I compare the two side by side, actually this month would probably be looking much lower from a cost perspective. So the question would be, what was that spike that made our costs go up? And we'll kind of look at that a little bit. I think I get a flavour here really as well. It's really log analytics and app service costs that look like the spike in there. So that gives me a view at a high level. Now I could drill into this a bit further if I wanted. We've got some options to expand stuff on these graphs. So you can like right click and drill into it a bit further if you want to. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm looking at my my cost review tab here. And with this tab, again, it's side by side last month versus this month. But what I'm looking for, again, at service level, is I'm really looking for just a slightly different view when I'm comparing line items side by side. And I can see, my log analytics costs went up by 362. My SQL database costs went up a bit here. which I maybe didn't spot that on the graph previously. Maybe the graphs obviously it focuses your eye on certain parts of a graph, whereas when you get it in table form, you can see much more granular what kind of things are happening. So that gives me a view of some of my key cost changes here. Um, so really, for me, what I'd be looking at probably here, or maybe be these three costs. Probably, the top two definitely I'd want to ask the team about, and it could just be the case that there's more usage, so they can explain what those costs mean because they're related to usage increase, or it might be that there's some configurations there. They're things I would ask them about. Now, what I can also do is, if I want to go a bit deeper than service name, I might just change the table to be based on resource, for example, instead. And here you would see I'd get a list of all the resources and I could look at individual ones. That's our log namespace. You can see we've got to me, this looks like a cert got renewed here. So that might be a cost related to the certificate renewal. And I can go into individual resources and see which ones change. So I'm guessing here we might look at a few of these. I think on some of the sort of summed up graphs, some things group as being other categories. So when you're looking at graphs based on service names, sometimes you'll see one that says other categories. And I'm thinking the certificate cost probably would have been inside that. So those are the kind of things we just kind of talk about in a bit more detail. And then if I want to deep dive a bit further, here you can see, the day by day costs for my various things here. So, you can see I've got that cost here. That cost spike, and we can see generally everything else was looking pretty good across the week. Across the month. And again, I think if we look based on resource group here, we can see it's a production cost, and all the other resource groups are fairly flat. So to me, there's two key things here I'd probably be asking the team about. One, just to give me a bit of info on that certificate renewal, to give me a bit of info about what happened in prod that spiked the cost for that short period. Now, I'm going to guess it might be the case that we had a new customer on board and they uploaded a load of documents, so they had a big spike in activity. Sometimes if you think it's a knowledge-based product, we might have a customer who released a new feature and they've had a lot of users come in and request to see content about a certain feature that they've got documented in their knowledge base. So it could just be user traffic. The team would explain that a bit more, what that cost spike was. It's quite a big cost spike, actually, so definitely one I'd be asking them to tell me about. So the next thing I would do in a cost review, so I've got a flavour going into our meeting about what's happened. I'd also go to the optimizer section, and we're looking at right sizing over here. So when I look at the right sizing list here, what I'm really looking at is, have they been going through and optimizing the resources to check everything's efficient? Are there things that we can change? So I can see straight away here, there's a couple of VMs that we've got that have got some sort of reasonable cost saving opportunities on over here. So I think we've got $500 worth of cost savings flagging up now. They may not have been there last month, for example. If those resources were being used differently, they may not have flagged up. So I'd just be asking the team, look, can you have a look at these, check if we can optimize it. It looks like it's just a plan change. So for example, if I click on one of these resources, it'll open the resource up and I get a flavor of the usage. I can see the CPU is quite low. I can see it doesn't really look like it's being used that much, that machine. So I would, in this case, I'd ask the team to take a task away to go and look at optimizing those resources. I think we also can see a few resources here that are looking idle. So it might be the case they've done a proof of concept, or they've got some development activities that they might be just trying some stuff out and they're not being used much. So I'll just check that. They aren't things we need to get rid of, for example. So those are the key, cost saving opportunities that are flagging up this month. I've spent, 10 minutes here going through. I've got a fairly decent flavour of how the team's doing. When we have our catch-up meeting, I'll just get them to talk through it, tell me what they're going to do about those cost-saving opportunities, and then so that meeting, the output is we should save potentially $600 from that meeting. We had a cost spike, so the team can explain what that was about. And but otherwise, I think the team's looking quite healthy. It looked like generally our trend was down, um, and costs were coming down generally, which was good versus last month, even though potentially our usage has gone up. I know we made a couple of tweaks last month about a couple of like log analytics setting changes that we spotted in the cost data. So this is the ongoing kind of sustainability maintenance, that when you do a cost review, just seeing what things have changed about your application and making sure you're keeping on top of it being efficient. So otherwise, I'm generally happy. I think a lot of people doing cost reviews, you probably would find a lot more things the first time you do a review. But what we hope with the Turbo 360 tool is it makes it really quick to just spend a little bit of time checking everything's all right, make a couple of tweaks, and then you get on with all the other important work that you've got to do, and just make cost management doesn't become a big pain that you do every 6 months. You spend days and days and looking at cost and not really doing anything. For us, we've really got to the point where we're fairly efficient, and we've just got some opportunities that come up every now and again to just tune the application and keep it efficient, keep our wastage down as much as possible, and I think that puts us in a strong position. The final thing for today's video is, while I was talking about how we internally at Covi do a cost review, um, we're doing a lot of engagement with partners at the moment as well. So the idea of me providing a governance FinOps advisory role to the different product teams in the company, something some companies will not have the capability to do. So this is where, as a product vendor at Covi, when we partner up with companies like Contiga and Black Marble and Data Passion and other companies, they have specialist FinOps advisory capabilities where customers can sort of have the tool, they can use it to view their costs, but having that third party, whether it be somebody in your organization or an external partner who can give you some accountability, I think is a really great way of making sure that you're actually keeping on top of the costs. So one of the things I think that advisor role has a lot of value is being able to make sure the cost reviews are happening, being able to ask questions of the team, just with that sort of third sort of outside view coming in. You would ask questions like I've asked you in this video to say, what does this mean? Why did this cost change here? How does this configuration affect the application costs? Why haven't we right-sized these machines that are flagging up as a right-size opportunity? And then even being able to look at some of the costs and say, maybe we could make changes to the application that would make costs more sustainable. So just to call out that we do engage with partners for Turbo 360 who can provide that external FinOps service. If you as a viewer, if your company needs somebody to help you get on top of your Azure costs and really just give that accountability to your teams to make sure they're doing stuff, and also potentially to help you sort of turn FinOps into being something you action rather than something you just look at. What we want to do is identify ways of saving money and then make sure that we actually do them. Thank you for listening to today's video. I hope everybody has a great week. Take care.